Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, onto the dusty, treacherous paths of one of the most legendary trade routes in history, the Silk Road. Picture yourself standing under the blistering sun, the desert stretching endlessly ahead. You've heard of the treasures, the exotic goods, the vast cultures exchanging knowledge across continents. But there's something else you'll soon realize. Survival here is no simple feat. Between scorching heat, unpredictable weather, and the threat of bandits at every turn, this is a road where you don't just trade goods. You trade your very life for the chance to prosper. You probably won't survive this journey. But don't worry, you're here for the ride. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you tuning in from tonight? Post your location and local time, and let's share this moment together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Silk Road was a vast network of trade routes stretching across Asia, connecting China, India, the Middle East, and Europe. It wasn't just one road. It was an entire web of paths, crisscrossing deserts, mountains, and steppes. This was the route where merchants, explorers, and travelers crossed paths in the pursuit of valuable goods. But there's more to the Silk Road than the goods that traded hands. It was also a place where survival meant mastering the elements and navigating dangers both seen and unseen. You stand in the middle of the desert, the sun relentless above you. The winds shift, carrying the dust from the shifting dunes. And suddenly, the world feels as though it's swallowing you whole. You could be out here for weeks, maybe longer, without seeing a soul. Your skin burns under the heat, your throat parched, and your feet blister from walking the endless stretches of unforgiving sand. The road ahead of you is like a shimmering mirage, always out of reach. The only thing that keeps you moving forward is the promise of what lies at the end. Markets filled with riches, exotic spices, beautiful silks, and precious gemstones. But that's not the reality you face right now. Right now, the reality is survival. Historians still argue about how treacherous the route truly was. Some claim the dangers of the Silk Road were exaggerated in the tales told by traders, emphasizing the heroism of the journey and the thrill of adventure. Others argue that it was precisely the extreme conditions, the blistering heat of the desert, the freezing cold of the mountain passes, and the constant threat of attack that made the Silk Road so perilous. Either way, there's one thing that's certain. You've made a dangerous choice. And as you continue to trek through the searing desert, the notion of what lies ahead grows both exciting and terrifying. As the sun starts its descent, the temperature in the desert drops quickly. You feel a slight relief from the sweltering heat of the day. But the cold of the desert night creeps in just as swiftly. You find yourself looking up at the sky, and for a brief moment, you forget the fatigue and the dangers surrounding you. The stars shimmer above you, brighter than you've ever seen them before. In this silence, you almost feel like the world is holding its breath. But soon, the quiet will be broken. The night winds rise, and the real danger of the desert starts to show itself. You realize that it's not just the heat and cold that make this place so dangerous. The desert is unforgiving not just because of the weather, but because of the isolation. Out here, it's easy to forget just how far you are from civilization. The idea of rescue is almost laughable. No one would find you out here, Not unless you were lucky enough to cross paths with a caravan or stumble across an oasis. Most caravans won't risk straying too far from the established paths. And when they do, they're usually well armed with guards to fend off the roaming bands of desert raiders. The desert, vast and empty, is a place where the smallest mistake could be your last. Speaking of mistakes, you can't help but think about how quickly the heat has started to take its toll. You're drinking your water too fast, hoping it will last longer. But it's already becoming clear that this won't be enough. In the distance, you spot the glint of something, a shimmer on the horizon. But you can't quite tell if it's an oasis or just another mirage, mocking you. There's a moment of hesitation before you continue walking. The promise of water, of rest, is so close. But you're unsure whether to trust your eyes. If you were lucky, you might encounter a caravan traveling along the same path. Those merchant trains, often moving in groups to protect themselves from the elements and thieves. These caravans were essential to the survival of traders along the Silk Road. Without them, travel would have been far too risky. Imagine trudging across this endless stretch of sand without the protection of a caravan, surrounded by people who know how to survive this place, with camels loaded down with goods and supplies. But even with the caravans, the desert didn't care about your plans. A sandstorm could come out of nowhere, and once it hit, there was nothing you could do but try to survive it. Historians still argue over the exact role that sandstorms played in shaping the lives of those traveling along the Silk Road. Some claim that the storms were a constant, terrifying presence, forcing caravans to be far more cautious, while others suggest that the storms were an accepted part of life, a risk that traders simply learned to live with. One thing is certain, though, those who survived the desert didn't just rely on their trade goods. They had to rely on instinct, preparation, and a bit of luck. As you trudge forward, the wind begins to pick up, the cool desert air now turning into something harsher. You pull your cloak tighter around yourself, trying to shield your face from the sand that's beginning to sting your skin. And yet, as the wind picks up, you remind yourself, this is just the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead. The journey is far from over, and the mysteries of the Silk Road are still waiting for you, hidden in the dust and the shadows. By the time the first rays of sunlight pierce the horizon again, you've made it through the worst of the desert's grip. Your body aches, your skin is raw from the wind and sun, and you feel the effects of dehydration setting in. But there's no time to linger. Your journey along the Silk Road is far from over. The desert has provided you with a taste of its cruelty, and as you press forward, the landscape slowly begins to change. The arid sand dunes start to give way to rocky plateaus, and the scrubby bushes are replaced by trees that have somehow found a way to survive in this inhospitable environment. You've reached the border of one of the great oasis towns along the Silk Road. These towns were crucial stops for travelers like yourself, offering the promise of water, food, and respite before continuing the journey. They weren't just places to rest. They were hubs of commerce, where goods from far-off lands would be exchanged. Traders, merchants, and even nomadic peoples would pass through these towns, making them lively, vibrant places full of activity and, at times, danger. You're met with the sight of thick mud brick walls that surround the town. A dusty, bustling market square filled with people haggling over all manner of goods. Silk from China, spices from India, glassware from Venice. Everything is here. It's as though the world itself is contained within these walls. The town streets are lined with small shops, their wooden doors and windows spilling over with brightly colored goods. As you move through the marketplace, the noise of the crowd envelops you, the calls of vendors, the chatter of fellow travelers, the constant shuffle of people walking past each other. But it's not just a place of commerce. It's also a place of survival. And not just in the physical sense. The merchants here have been through it all. Sandstorms, raiders, hunger, and thirst, and their sharp eyes show it. There's a certain kind of shrewdness to the way they interact with each other. This is a world where everything is a negotiation, even a simple handshake. The local traders are as much a part of the landscape as the desert itself. Some have made their fortunes by selling their goods, while others scrape by, hoping for just enough to continue on their journey. Historians still debate how the trading hubs of the Silk Road evolved. Some claim that these towns were the true heart of the Silk Road, vibrant places that connected east and west, fostering exchange not only of goods, but of ideas and cultures. Others argue that these towns were no more than temporary stops along a much larger and more dangerous route, with the real wealth and power resting in the hands of those controlling the caravans and the borders between kingdoms. Regardless, what's clear is that these oasis towns were key to survival. They were the lifeblood of the trade network, places where deals were made, alliances forged, and wealth accumulated. As you make your way through the market, you feel the weight of your journey. And for a moment, you almost forget the danger lurking ahead. There's a fleeting sense of safety here, of being part of something larger than yourself. The aroma of roasting meats fills the air, and the sound of laughter and conversation rises up from the surrounding stalls. But this peace is fragile. The Silk Road may offer wealth, exotic goods, and the chance to experience different cultures, but it also offers danger, betrayal, and uncertainty. This oasis town, like all the others along the road, is a microcosm of the world outside, one that is constantly shifting, a place where fortunes can change in the blink of an eye, where alliances can be broken just as quickly as they are formed. And as you pause to catch your breath, you remember. The journey continues. The Silk Road is vast, stretching across continents, and it will test you again, just as it has tested so many before you. The town is bustling, alive with the exchange of goods, languages, and ideas from every corner of the known world. But as you step deeper into the heart of the marketplace, you begin to realize that things aren't always as peaceful as they seem. The market, for all its vibrancy, hides its darker side. While merchants haggle over silk and spices, thieves lurk in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The sharp glint of a dagger in the alleyway or the rustle of someone's cloak brushing against yours, there's always a sense of unease, as if the trade route's promise of wealth comes at a cost. You've seen it before, the way people disappear into the crowd, only to reappear later with empty pockets, or worse, sometimes. It's a subtle thing, a distracted glance, a sudden brush against your shoulder, or an overzealous handshake that turns out to be a distraction. Other times, it's more blatant, a violent tug of your satchel or a chase through the alleys as thieves scramble to make their escape. But there's a strange code among the travelers here. Theft, though a common occurrence, is often punished swiftly and publicly. A thief who gets caught might find themselves thrown into the stocks, or worse, left to the mercy of the bandits who roam the outskirts of town. It's a strange paradox. The town is a safe haven for traders and travelers, but it's also a place where the rules of the road are constantly in flux. You can never quite let your guard down. The excitement of trading goods, meeting new people, and seeing treasures from distant lands is tempered by the ever-present threat of betrayal, theft, or violence. You're constantly aware of who's around you, who's watching, and whether that person is a potential ally or a thief waiting to make their move. Historians still debate the extent to which crime and danger were an integral part of the Silk Road's vibrant trade culture. Some suggest that the danger was always present, especially in the lawless deserts and mountains where bandits were a real threat to travelers. Others argue that the trade routes were relatively safe, with only occasional outbreaks of violence, and that the real risks came from the vast political and cultural divides that separated the East from the West. Regardless of where the truth lies, one thing is clear. The Silk Road was never just a smooth path of exchange. It was fraught with danger at every turn. And the success of those who traveled it depended on more than just their goods. It depended on their ability to survive. As you navigate the marketplace, you pause for a moment to observe a group of traders unloading crates filled with fragrant spices, cardamom, cinnamon, and saffron. The rich scents almost overwhelm you, and you can't help but marvel at the luxury these goods represent. To you, these spices are the stuff of legends, items so rare, they're worth more than gold in some places. You remember stories of how merchants would make their fortune on just a single shipment of these prized goods? Yet, as much as they are worth, they are also coveted by others who would stop at nothing to get their hands on them. And just as the spices hold value, so too does every piece of gold or silver on the Silk Road. Money, power, and wealth are the true drivers of this journey, and with them comes the ever-present threat of danger. The merchants in this town are shrewd, their eyes scanning the crowds for potential buyers, but also for anyone who might be looking to steal what they've worked so hard to acquire. But it's not just the merchants who have something to gain. There are always rumors of treasures hidden along the route, secrets passed in whispers between traders. You can feel the undercurrent of greed in the air. The sense that no matter how much wealth you accumulate, it could all vanish in an instant if someone else decides to take it. The trade routes may promise riches, but they also promise risk. There's no way around it. If you want to make your fortune along the Silk Road, you'll have to survive the dangers, whether from thieves, natural elements, or the ever-present threat of political instability. You might leave with silks, spices, or gold, but you might also leave with less than you started. And that's the reality for many who venture along these dangerous paths. As the sun sets behind the distant mountains, the landscape of the Silk Road transforms once again. The oasis town, alive with the bustle of trade, begins to settle into the quiet of the evening. Lanterns flicker to life, casting warm, golden glows across the cobbled streets. But this peace, like all peace on the Silk Road, is fleeting. For the merchants, the traders, and even the travelers, the night is often just as perilous as the day. The desert never truly sleeps, and neither do the dangers that come with it. In the shadows, you see figures moving quietly, their cloaks drawn tightly around them. These are the bandits, those who make their living by preying on caravans, traders, and anyone who happens to stray too far from the safety of the walls. The Silk Road, for all its promises of wealth, is equally known for its lawlessness, and the night is when it truly comes alive. The merchants who set up camp at the edges of the town know this well. They are not just protecting their goods, they are protecting their lives. As you sit by the fire, the warmth of the flames offering a fleeting sense of safety, you can't help but overhear the hushed conversations around you. Some merchants talk of their travels through the Taklamakan Desert, where water is so scarce that entire caravans have disappeared without a trace. Others speak of the mountain passes of the Pamirs, where the high-altitude air is thin, and the threat of avalanches or sudden snowstorms can kill just as quickly as the bandits lurking in the valleys. The road, in all its vastness and glory, doesn't care who you are or how much you've risked to get here. It's indifferent to your suffering, your triumphs, your hopes for riches. Yet, amidst these stories of danger, there's something else. A certain kind of camaraderie, the quiet understanding among traders and travelers that, while the road is full of risks, there is also something deeply thrilling about it. The Silk Road is a place where fortunes are made and lost, but it's also a place where cultures meet. Ideas are exchanged and connections are forged. Merchants from the Far East might trade their silks for Persian rugs, while European traders bring glassware and woolen goods from across the sea. But just as often as the exchange of goods, there's an exchange of knowledge. The road is not just about things, it's about ideas, religions, philosophies, and innovations that travel just as far and wide as the precious commodities. Historians still argue about how much of the Silk Road's success was driven by the exchange of culture, not just goods. Some suggest that the Silk Road was primarily about trade. Its true value lay in its role as a conduit for economic growth. Others point to the fascinating cultural exchange that took place along the route, with ideas about religion, science, and art spreading as quickly as the caravans that carried them. Either way, what's clear is that the Silk Road wasn't just about what you could hold in your hands. It was about the connections it allowed people to make. These connections, sometimes fleeting but always powerful, are the true treasures of the road. But tonight, as you sit in the flickering light, you can't shake the feeling that everything here is fleeting. The sense of camaraderie, the excitement of hearing about foreign lands, and the comfort of a warm fire. These are the moments you hold on to. But tomorrow, the journey begins again. The markets will open, the caravans will leave, and the dangers of the road will return. The Silk Road is a path filled with endless possibility, but also endless risk. As the fire crackles and the voices around you grow quieter, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. Will the caravan set out safely? Will there be thieves waiting in the darkness, or will you make it to the next stop without incident? There's no way to know, but for now, you hold on to the fleeting moments of safety, knowing that the Silk Road will continue to challenge you, just as it has for centuries. Morning arrives much too quickly. The sun peeks over the horizon, casting a golden light across the town, and the world feels, for a fleeting moment, safe again. But even as the warmth of the sun touches the ground, you can feel the pressure building. The travelers begin to stir, the merchants pack up their goods, and the caravan masters begin preparing their camels for the long trek ahead. The day's work is never truly over, even when the sun has barely risen. The town square, which was quiet only hours ago, is now bustling with activity. Traders greet each other with familiar nods and the clinking of coins as deals are struck. Even before the first proper light of day, you can already hear the sounds of haggling filling the air. The cacophony of languages, from Arabic to Mandarin to Latin, mixes in the air, each word a note in the vast symphony of the Silk Road. People exchange goods, but they're also exchanging stories and rumors, news of distant lands, of changing political winds, and of what's to come. But as you watch these transactions unfold, you can't help but notice the undercurrent of fear that lingers beneath it all. It's there in the way the merchants keep a close eye on their goods, their hands hovering near their weapons. It's there in the way they look over their shoulders when a stranger enters the market. The world of the Silk Road is built on trade, but it's also built on trust. And trust is a rare commodity here. You realize, not for the first time, that the Silk Road is as much about survival as it is about wealth. Merchants trust each other to some extent, but they also know that betrayal is just around the corner. Every deal is a risk. Every encounter an opportunity for someone to exploit a weakness. You can feel the tension rising, and it's not just about the merchants. In the distance, you spot a group of armed guards preparing to leave the town, likely headed to the caravan to ensure safe passage through the dangerous mountain passes ahead. You overhear talk of bandits lurking along the route, waiting for the caravan to slow down, to falter, so they can strike. The journey ahead is filled with uncertainty. Even the heavily armed guards can't guarantee safety. But still, they go, driven by the wealth that the Silk Road offers. The promise of riches outweighs the danger, for now. It's hard to imagine what would drive someone to risk their life for trade. The risks of traveling along the Silk Road are well known. The desert's heat, the cold of the mountain passes, and the threat of thieves and bandits are all part of the landscape. Yet, the lure of wealth, the opportunity to bring something precious from the east to the west, or vice versa, keeps people moving. You find yourself wondering what's so alluring about the goods being traded that would make these travelers risk so much. Silk, spices, rare stones, things that are highly prized in distant lands, things that could change the course of a life. For some, the promise of gold is enough to make the road worth it. Historians still argue about how the dangers of the Silk Road shaped the people who traveled it. Some say that it was the constant threat of death and betrayal that created the unique culture of merchants along the route, one of extreme caution mixed with daring ambition. Others suggest that the Silk Road was a place of opportunity, where only the brave or desperate dared to go, and those who made it to the end of the journey were forever changed by the experiences they'd had. Either way, it's clear that the trade route wasn't just a highway for goods. It was a highway for human ambition, fear, and the will to survive. You feel a strange combination of fear and excitement building inside you as you prepare to leave the safety of the town and move deeper into the unknown. It's an unsettling feeling, the kind that keeps you awake at night, but also drives you forward, pushes you into the unknown. The Silk Road promises riches, but it also promises risk. And as you prepare to join a caravan, you know that the road ahead will test your resolve. Will you emerge from this journey with wealth and stories to tell? Or will you become just another name lost in the sands of time, a victim of the dangerous world that thrives along the Silk Road? The caravan is ready to depart, and you feel the weight of it all settling onto your shoulders. The camels, laden with goods, snort and shift, their eyes glinting with a quiet understanding of the long journey ahead. Merchants and their guards are finalizing their preparations, double-checking their gear, adjusting saddles, and tightening straps. There's a sense of controlled chaos in the air, the kind of energy you get just before a storm hits. As the caravan begins to move, you follow in the rear, trying to maintain a steady pace. The path ahead, marked only by the faint trail left by previous travelers, leads into the desert, and beyond that, the unknown. The first few hours on the road pass in relative peace. The landscape is both beautiful and unforgiving. Wide, empty plains stretch out in all directions, with no signs of life other than the occasional cactus or dried-up riverbed. The wind stirs the sand into ripples, making the horizon look like an endless sea of gold. It's easy to get lost in the beauty of the desert, to forget for a moment how hostile it can be. But as the sun climbs higher, the heat begins to intensify, and the mood shifts. The air grows thicker, the camel's steps slower, and the once comfortable breeze turns into a harsh wind that stings the skin. You're already beginning to feel the effects of the sun. Your throat dries up, and the sweat on your brow evaporates quickly in the heat. The water supply, though adequate for now, begins to feel like it's slipping away from you. And you know that the oasis you passed earlier was the last one for days. You try to ration your water, but it's hard to think about anything other than the growing thirst in your throat and the heat radiating off the sand beneath you. You know that dehydration is one of the greatest dangers on the Silk Road. If you're not careful, it could kill you just as easily as a thief's blade or the collapse of a caravan under attack. As the day wears on, the landscape changes. The flat plains give way to rocky outcrops, and you can see the distant mountains in the haze. The caravan slows as it approaches a narrow pass between two cliffs, a natural choke point where ambushes are common. The guards, who had been walking in relative silence, suddenly spring into action. They move to the front of the caravan, eyes scanning the rocks for signs of movement. The mood shifts from routine to alert in an instant, and the once vibrant chatter of the merchants dies down. You, along with the other travelers, stay quiet, your eyes darting nervously to the shadows. The danger of the road has never felt more real. It's not the first time you've heard of bandit attacks along this stretch. The Silk Road, for all its opportunities for trade and prosperity, is just as much a route for those who choose to prey on the vulnerable. The isolation of the desert and the relative lack of law enforcement make it the perfect hunting ground for thieves. They know the terrain better than any caravan could, and their knowledge of the route gives them an edge. But the caravans, as well as their guards, are not without their own defenses. There's a kind of unspoken code on the road. The strong protect the weak, the merchants protect their goods, and the traders and travelers rely on each other to make it through. Historians still debate whether the Silk Road was more dangerous than other major trade routes. Some suggest that the threat of bandits and thieves was exaggerated, and that most of the dangers came from the harsh conditions of the road itself. Others argue that the constant threat of attack, whether from raiders or rival caravans, was a fundamental part of the Silk Road's identity. Either way, there's no denying the fact that the dangers were real. A single wrong move could send you from a merchant seeking riches to a corpse left to rot in the desert. A reminder of the price that comes with the trade. You move cautiously, the tension in the air palpable. The guards scan the rocks ahead, and you can feel your heartbeat quicken. The heat seems to rise even higher now, pressing down on you as the caravan inches forward. The smell of dust, sweat, and leather fills your nostrils, and the sound of camels shifting their weight, their hooves scraping against the rough ground, becomes almost deafening. The narrow pass feels like a trap, and you can't help but think that this is where the road could very well end for some of you. But, for now, the caravan moves forward. The danger is real, but it hasn't reached you yet. You follow, step by step, knowing that the journey ahead is uncertain, and each moment is a reminder of how fragile your position is on this road. Will you make it through the pass unscathed? Or will you become another victim of the treacherous Silk Road, swallowed up by the vastness of the desert and the greed of those who wait in the shadows? The tension in the caravan is palpable as you continue through the narrow pass. The cliffs on either side loom over you like silent sentinels, their jagged edges casting long shadows that stretch across the path. The guards remain at the front, their eyes sharp, scanning every crevice, every outcrop, waiting for the inevitable attack. You can feel the weight of their vigilance in the air. Every second stretched thin, every movement a potential sign of danger. But nothing happens. The bandits, if they're even out there, are waiting, biding their time. The caravan continues on, though you can tell the guards aren't entirely convinced that the worst is over. You can hear the slow, steady rhythm of the camels' hooves against the rocky ground, the occasional rattle of the carts. But it all feels oddly muffled. The oppressive silence is broken only by the occasional whisper between the merchants, their faces etched with concern, but still determined to continue. It's a reminder that life along the Silk Road is not just about the goods. It's about the journey itself, and the constant threat of what might come next. As the caravan slowly exits the pass, the terrain begins to open up again. But the sense of unease doesn't disappear. The guards remain vigilant, though their pace picks up as they move beyond the choke point. You feel the sudden shift in the air, the weight of the pass lifting off your chest. But you know the danger hasn't gone away. The desert is vast, and the threats are many. There's always the chance of ambush, of disease, or worse, of simply running out of supplies before reaching the next oasis. The further you travel, the more you begin to appreciate the value of the caravan itself. It's not just a group of traders moving from one destination to the next. It's a survival mechanism. Travelers who might otherwise be lone wanderers, vulnerable to the elements, the terrain, and the bandits, now find strength in numbers. The merchants band together for mutual protection. The guards, though always alert, act as protectors, not just of goods, but of lives. There's a subtle shift in the way you see this community. It's no longer just about the exchange of goods. It's about something more basic, the survival of each person in the caravan. The caravan moves on, but you can't help but think about the things you've heard, about how the Silk Road isn't just a highway for trade, but a place where alliances are formed and broken, where the line between friend and foe is often blurry. The merchants know this better than anyone. They talk of how a seemingly simple trade can turn into something far more dangerous if the wrong person becomes involved. Rival traders, competing merchants, bandits pretending to be friends. These are all parts of the Silk Road's reality, parts of the world that are invisible to those who only see the goods that pass through. Historians still argue about the true nature of these alliances. Some claim that the Silk Road was defined by cooperation, an essential, unspoken agreement that, in order to survive, everyone had to work together. Others argue that the Silk Road was a land of deception, where trust was a commodity just as valuable as silk itself. Merchants knew how to negotiate, to convince their rivals to work with them, or risk losing everything. The system was built on fragile, ever-shifting alliances. As the sun dips lower in the sky, the caravan continues its march. The slow, steady rhythm of its movement, a comforting reminder of the shared journey ahead. But despite this small comfort, you remain aware of the dangers that still lurk beyond the horizon. The Silk Road isn't a road that lets you forget for long. You realize, as you adjust the weight of your pack and pull your cloak tighter around you against the growing chill of the desert evening, that the journey you're on is as much about the people you meet along the way as it is about the goods you transport. The Silk Road is filled with danger. Yes, but it is also filled with opportunity. It's a place where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye, where every turn can bring a new chance for wealth or a new threat to your life. You've heard the tales, of course, of merchants who strike it rich beyond their wildest dreams, and of those who never return, swallowed by the desert, claimed by the thieves who stalk the paths. And so you walk, step by step, alongside the others in the caravan, moving slowly but steadily toward your next destination, knowing that each day on the Silk Road brings you closer to something unknown. Will you make it to the next town with your goods intact? Or will you be caught by the dangers that lurk just beyond your sight? One thing is certain, this journey will shape you in ways you can't yet understand. The days blur together as the caravan continues its trek through the endless desert. The sun remains a constant presence above, merciless in its heat, casting long shadows across the sand as the days stretch on. Your body is starting to feel the toll of the journey, muscles aching from hours of walking, skin burned from the unrelenting sun, and your throat growing parched despite your best efforts to ration your water. The landscape, though awe-inspiring in its vastness, is beginning to feel like a prison. The same endless dunes, the same dry brush, the same relentless heat. The promise of an oasis or the sight of a distant town feels increasingly out of reach. Yet, the caravan presses on. There's a kind of rhythm to it now. The steady march of camels, the creaking of carts, the occasional low murmur of conversation among the traders. The guards are still alert, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. And you notice the way the merchants' expressions have become more guarded. They don't speak of it directly, but you know that fear has begun to settle in. The desert is an unforgiving place, and the longer you stay in it, the more you realize that it can strip away everything, your wealth, your health, and sometimes even your life. As the days pass, the caravan begins to show signs of wear. Supplies are running low, and you overhear murmurs of worry. The last oasis was days ago, and the next one isn't scheduled for another few days. The thought of being without water for that long sends a shiver down your spine. You try not to think about it, but the fear is there, lurking beneath the surface. You can see it in the eyes of your fellow travelers as they look up at the sky, hoping for clouds, hoping for something to break the monotony of the sun. And yet, even in the face of such adversity, there's a strange beauty in this part of the journey. As night falls and the stars emerge, the desert transforms. The heat fades, and the air becomes cooler, more manageable. The sky, once a vast expanse of nothing, fills with a blanket of stars so dense it feels as though you could reach out and touch them. The caravan slows as night falls, with travelers setting up camp under the stars. The firelight flickers, casting shadows on the faces of those around you, faces worn by the road, by the hardships endured, yet still determined to push forward. The campfire crackles and pops, sending sparks into the cool night air. The smell of roasting meat, a welcome reprieve from the dust and sweat of the day, fills your nostrils. You sit down with your fellow travelers, sharing what little food you have left. There's a moment of quiet in the camp as everyone eats. The harsh realities of the road temporarily forgotten. It's easy to forget that just hours ago, the heat had been unbearable, the thirst overwhelming, and the danger palpable. But here, around the fire, there's a fleeting sense of peace. The sounds of the desert have softened, and for a moment, it feels as though you're safe. Historians still debate the psychological effects of the Silk Road on those who traveled it. Some argue that the constant stress of the journey, the physical toll, and the ever-present threat of danger created a unique sense of camaraderie among travelers. Others suggest that the harshness of the road often led to isolation and fear, with the desert becoming a kind of mental prison. Either way, it's clear that the Silk Road wasn't just a place of commerce. It was a place that tested the limits of human endurance. The people who traveled it, from merchants to guards to common travelers like yourself, were shaped by the road in ways that were impossible to predict. As you sit by the fire, your hands wrapped around a small bowl of stew, you feel the weight of the journey settling on your shoulders once again. The caravan will move on at dawn, and the road ahead remains uncertain. Will you make it to the next oasis? Will the caravan survive the journey ahead? Or will the desert take its toll? It's a question you've asked yourself more than once, and the answer is never clear. You know one thing for sure, though. The Silk Road doesn't give up its secrets easily, and those who travel it must be prepared to face its dangers head on. The mystery of the road, the allure of the riches it promises, and the constant threat of the unknown all swirl together to form something greater than the sum of its parts. A journey of survival, of hope, and of endless challenge. The caravan's fire burns low, and you can feel the weight of sleep tugging at your eyelids. The journey continues, and tomorrow will bring new trials, new dangers, and perhaps new opportunities. But for tonight, you let yourself rest, knowing that whatever happens, you're one step closer to the end of the road and, hopefully, one step closer to the riches that lie at its end. The desert night is cold, and the stars overhead feel impossibly distant as you wake in the early hours of the morning. The air is dry, the ground hard beneath your blanket, and the sounds of the caravan stirring to life are the only signs of movement in the otherwise still world. The fire that was once bright and warm now burns low, the last of the embers crackling as the first light of dawn spreads across the horizon. The caravan is already packing up, merchants tying their goods, camels being saddled, the guards scanning the surroundings with practiced vigilance. The journey continues, as it always does, but there's a weariness in the air, a subtle shift in the rhythm of the road. Everyone seems to move a bit slower today. The promise of the oasis you're heading toward has fueled you for days. But the stretch of desert between here and there still feels endless. Each step taken on this road feels heavier than the last, as though the sand itself is trying to pull you back, to keep you trapped in its grasp. The harshness of the Silk Road has begun to sink in. At first, it felt like a challenge, a grand adventure filled with the hope of wealth, of discovery, of meeting new people and cultures. But now, you understand that the road is far more than that. It's a place where the stakes are high, where every decision matters, and where survival is always in question. The promise of riches and the hope of fortune feel less certain now, replaced by a deeper understanding of the road's true nature. It's a place that tests not just your endurance, but your very will to keep going. Historians often debate how the harshness of the Silk Road shaped its travelers. Some argue that it was this very hardship that gave rise to the legendary resilience of those who survived it. Caravans that pushed forward despite everything. Travelers who kept moving even when the weight of the journey seemed unbearable. Others suggest that the suffering along the road was far more profound, with many travelers succumbing to the toll of the journey, lost to the unforgiving desert, the high mountain passes, or even the invisible dangers of disease. Regardless, it's clear that the Silk Road wasn't a road for the faint of heart. To travel, it required grit, strength, and sometimes sheer stubbornness. As the caravan begins to move once more, you hear the low groan of the camels and feel the sway of the cart beneath you as you settle into your place. The air grows hotter as the sun rises higher, and the land seems to stretch further before you. The horizon, a blur of shimmering heat. The silence of the desert begins to settle over the caravan once more. There are no voices now, only the sounds of trudging feet, creaking carts, and the occasional call from a guard. The march of the caravan continues, the rhythm of it almost hypnotic. But this time, there's a sense of urgency in the air, an understanding that every step taken is one closer to the next challenge. The sun is high in the sky when the first sign of trouble appears, a faint dust cloud rising in the distance, just visible on the horizon. The guards immediately go on alert, their heads swiveling to keep an eye on it. You know what it means. The danger of the Silk Road is not just the endless desert, but the bandits who roam its edges, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The caravan moves faster now, a quiet tension building in the air. The merchants are still focused on their goods, but there's a subtle shift in their behavior, more careful, more cautious, as though they too feel the threat hanging in the air. You've heard stories of these kinds of attacks. Raiders who strike quickly, taking what they can before disappearing into the vastness of the desert. They are experts at blending into the surroundings, using the terrain to their advantage. The caravan, despite its guards, is vulnerable. The road is long, and the dangers are many. You can feel the weight of that danger, the sense that any moment could bring the clash of swords or the shouts of the attackers. But for now, the caravan continues on. The guards have already formed a defensive formation, ready for whatever might come. Historians often debate how common these attacks really were. Some claim that banditry along the Silk Road was exaggerated, and that caravans were generally safe if well protected. Others suggest that raids were a regular occurrence, and that traders had to constantly be on their guard, lest they fall victim to the next wave of bandits. The truth is probably somewhere in between, as even the most well-protected caravans couldn't always avoid the dangers lurking just beyond the horizon. As the caravan continues, you can't help but wonder if the merchants and travelers you meet along the way know something you don't. If they understand the real nature of the Silk Road in a way that you're only beginning to grasp. This is more than just a road for trade. It's a place where survival depends on constant awareness. A place where one mistake could cost you everything. And yet, despite it all, you continue. The promise of wealth, the allure of discovery, and the constant hum of the road continue to draw you forward, step by step. The tension is palpable as the caravan presses forward. The faint dust cloud now looming closer on the horizon. You can hear the increasing murmur of the guards as they prepare themselves. Their weapons at the ready, their hands gripping the hilts of their swords with an intensity you hadn't noticed before. The caravan moves quickly now, the steady rhythm of footsteps quickening as the guards fan out in a defensive formation, eyes scanning the landscape, alert for any sign of movement. The merchants, too, seem to grow more cautious, their chatter growing quieter, their faces more guarded. You've never felt the weight of the road as heavily as you do now. The danger is no longer abstract. It's real, and it's closing in. The sun beats down mercilessly as the caravan trudges forward, the heat shimmering off the sand in waves. The air grows thick, almost oppressive, and you feel it in your lungs, the dryness of it choking the moisture from your throat. You take another sip from your water flask, trying to ration it, but it feels like there's never enough. The desert is swallowing you whole, the unyielding vastness of it making everything feel small, insignificant. You can't help but feel the weight of that distance, the endless miles of sand, rock, and barren earth, stretching on in every direction. It's as if the road itself has become a living thing, a beast that's both your companion and your enemy, propelling you forward with an iron grip. The dust cloud grows nearer, and with it, the sense of urgency in the caravan grows. The guards move more swiftly now, their eyes narrowed as they scan the horizon for any sign of movement. You're not sure if you're imagining it, but the air seems to crackle with tension, the stillness of the desert broken only by the faint whispers of the wind. Every creak of the camels' saddles, every rustle of a merchant's cloak, feels amplified, as if the desert is holding its breath along with you. And then, in an instant, it happens. A shout rings out from the front of the caravan, followed by the sound of hooves thundering across the sand. The bandits are here, and they've made their move. You hear the sharp clash of metal, the unmistakable sound of swords meeting in combat, and for a moment, time seems to slow. You freeze, your heart pounding in your chest, as you watch the guards spring into action, rushing toward the source of the attack. The caravan is suddenly a whirlwind of motion, camels lurching, merchants shouting, and the chaotic sound of footsteps and hooves filling the air. It's hard to focus, hard to think with the adrenaline surging through your veins. You don't know whether to stay or run, to fight or hide. The attackers move quickly, their faces covered with scarves, their bodies cloaked in the same dust and grime that the desert has claimed. They don't stop to negotiate. They take what they want and leave nothing behind. The bandits strike quickly and efficiently, picking off the weaker members of the caravan, snatching goods, and disappearing into the desert as swiftly as they arrived. As the chaos unfolds around you, you see the caravan guards fighting back, their swords flashing in the sunlight. The battle rages on for what feels like an eternity. But in reality, it's only a few minutes. The attackers, unable to hold their ground against the armed guards, retreat into the desert, leaving behind a trail of destruction. You can hear the shouts of the guards as they give chase. But it's clear that the bandits are long gone, vanishing into the vastness of the desert once again. Historians still argue about how dangerous the Silk Road truly was in its heyday. Some claim that the risk of attack was exaggerated, and that most caravans were able to travel relatively unharmed especially when well guarded. Others suggest that these attacks were more common than we like to admit, and that merchants and travelers had to live with the constant fear of ambush as part of their daily lives. Either way, there's no denying that the threat was real. And for those who traveled the road, every day was a reminder of the risks they took. As the dust settles, you take a deep breath, your hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. The caravan begins to regroup, the merchants quickly assessing the damage, checking their goods, and ensuring that no one has been seriously injured. The mood in the air has shifted. It's no longer the same carefree chatter you heard earlier. There's an unspoken understanding that the Silk Road is a dangerous place, that the wealth and riches it promises come at a cost. You continue your journey, your steps now a bit more tentative. The bandits are gone for now, but their presence has left its mark on you. The world you thought you knew, the world of merchants, travelers, and traders, has revealed itself to be far more dangerous than you imagined. As you press on, you can't help but think that the road ahead is even more treacherous than you had anticipated. But you continue forward nonetheless. It's what the Silk Road does to you. It keeps you moving, keeps you chasing the promise of fortune, even as the dangers pile up before you. As the days drag on, the aftermath of the ambush settles in. The caravan moves more cautiously now, its pace slowed by the lingering fear of another attack. The merchants are quieter, their faces etched with worry, and the guards are even more vigilant. Every rustle of the wind, every shift of a camel, is met with a quick glance and a sharpened sense of awareness. The adrenaline from the attack lingers in the air, a reminder of the ever-present danger that looms over the Silk Road. The merchants continue to haggle, their voices more subdued, but their eyes dart constantly, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. You can feel the weight of the road settling in. The journey has been longer than expected, and the dangers seem to be multiplying. What once felt like an adventure now feels like a survival test. The allure of wealth and goods from distant lands is still present, but it's becoming overshadowed by the constant struggle to stay safe, to stay alive. The heat of the desert still beats down relentlessly, the sand scraping against your skin like 1,000 tiny needles. Every step forward feels like a battle against the very elements that you're traveling through. The next few days blur together, the caravan making its way across the endless expanse of desert. The days are long, filled with the harsh sun and the aching distance between towns. Water grows scarcer, and you find yourself rationing even more carefully. You can see the strain on the faces of your fellow travelers, their eyes sunken from fatigue, their hands cracked from the dryness of the air. The once vibrant excitement of the journey has turned into a quiet, shared understanding. Survival is now the only goal. The Silk Road no longer feels like a path toward riches. It feels like a path through a gauntlet of challenges, with every step bringing you closer to the edge of your limits. As the caravan approaches the next town, you notice the change in the air. The heat of the desert seems to fade slightly, replaced by a faint breeze that promises relief. You begin to spot signs of civilization. Dusty roads leading to the town's entrance, the outlines of buildings rising from the desert like mirages. There's a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that this next stop might be the one that brings respite, the one where the endless journey finally gives way to rest. The prospect of the next town is a welcome sight, but there's also an underlying tension. The Silk Road's promise of safety is fragile, and you know that even in the midst of bustling markets and crowded streets, danger can still lurk. As the caravan enters the town, you're met with the familiar sights and sounds of a trading hub. The streets are alive with people, merchants, traders, travelers, and locals, all moving with purpose. Stalls line the road, offering goods from faraway lands, and the scent of fresh bread and roasting meat fills the air. You can almost forget the desert's heat and the bandits that lurk in its shadows, at least for a moment. The town feels like a brief oasis of civilization amidst the chaos of the road, a place where the world of trade comes to life, even if just for a short while. Historians often debate the role these towns played in the success of the Silk Road. Some claim that these hubs of commerce were the true heart of the Silk Road, where the exchange of goods and culture took place on a massive scale. Others suggest that these towns were just temporary stops along a much larger, more dangerous route, where the real wealth and power lay in the hands of those who controlled the caravans and the borders. Either way, what's clear is that these towns, with their lively markets and diverse populations, were essential to the Silk Road's existence. They were the places where goods were exchanged, but they were also the places where cultures mingled, where ideas and innovations spread, and where the road's true power lay, not just in its trade, but in the connections it fostered. You find yourself moving through the market, your senses overwhelmed by the colors, smells, and sounds. The traders are back in their element, haggling over the prices of their goods, bartering for the rarest items, and sharing stories from the road. You can't help but wonder what goods they brought with them, what treasures are hidden within their carts, what innovations and ideas have made their way across the desert to this bustling center of commerce. You stop to admire a piece of finely woven silk, its delicate threads shimmering in the light. And for a brief moment, you remember the reason you set out on this journey in the first place. The Silk Road is about wealth. Yes, but it's also about the wonder of the world beyond your doorstep, the promise of what might be waiting at the end of the road. But even as you linger in the market, you can't shake the feeling that danger is never far behind. The bandits, the harsh desert, the long stretches between towns, these threats are always present, always looming. Yet, for now, you allow yourself to enjoy the respite. You take a deep breath, letting the cool air of the town fill your lungs. You've survived another leg of the journey, and for a brief moment, the road seems just a little less daunting. The relief of reaching the town is temporary, as is the peace it brings. The next morning, as the sun rises once again over the town, the caravan begins to prepare for the next stretch of the journey. The merchants are eager to sell their wares, having traded their goods in the market and secured the best prices they could. But there's an underlying restlessness in the air. You sense that the peacefulness of the town has begun to fade. The same merchants who had exchanged stories of their travels now look around nervously, some glancing at the horizon, others speaking in hushed voices to the guards. The threat of the desert, of the bandits and dangers lurking in the vastness beyond, is never far from their minds. The excitement of a profitable stop is soon overshadowed by the reality of the road ahead. You join the caravan as it begins to move again, feeling the familiar sense of unease wash over you. The town is quickly left behind, and the sight of the desert slowly starts to rise before you, its barren expanses stretching out in every direction. The path ahead, though familiar to the seasoned traders, feels more daunting with each passing day. The once familiar journey has taken on a different shape now. It's no longer just about reaching the next town or trading for wealth. It's about surviving the road itself. The weight of the desert, the mountains, the storms, and the bandits presses heavily on your mind. As you move through the outskirts of the town, you pass by other travelers, some heading toward the same destination, others simply passing through. You can see the difference between those who know the road and those who don't. The experienced travelers walk with purpose, their movements assured, their eyes scanning the horizon. But you notice the new arrivals, their steps slower, unsure. They carry the same hope of riches, the same desire for adventure, but they are unaware of the toll the journey will take on them. They have no idea what lies ahead on the path. The further the caravan moves, the more you begin to feel the harshness of the landscape. The terrain shifts as you leave the oasis town behind, the roads becoming steeper, rockier, and more dangerous. The once placid desert has turned into something more hostile, a maze of canyons and ridges that test the endurance of both man and beast. Every step feels harder, the air growing thinner as you approach the first mountain pass of the journey. The landscape is filled with jagged cliffs, sharp turns, and hidden ravines that could easily swallow a caravan whole. The route is narrow, forcing the caravan to move in single file, each merchant and traveler carefully placing one foot in front of the other. The mountain pass offers its own set of dangers. The rocks that line the path are uneven, and the sudden drops on either side of the trail seem to stretch into an abyss. There's little shelter from the wind, and the cold, despite the heat of the day, bites at your skin. You can feel the altitude as your breath grows heavier with each step. You've heard stories of caravans that have lost their way in the mountain passes, of merchants who have disappeared without a trace, lost to the steep cliffs or to the bandits who know these mountains far too well. At the front of the caravan, you see the guards shift into a tighter formation, their weapons drawn, eyes alert for any sign of danger. The tension rises again, the air thick with the knowledge that danger is always one step behind. The caravans that travel these roads must always be ready. You wonder, not for the first time, what exactly you're walking toward. Wealth, danger, or perhaps both. Historians still argue about the real value of the Silk Road beyond its commercial appeal. Some claim that the most important thing it brought to the world wasn't silk or spices, but the exchange of ideas and knowledge, medicine, science, religion, and philosophy passed from east to west, and vice versa. Others suggest that while the intellectual exchanges were significant, the true value lay in the riches and trade that spurred the economy of the ancient world. What's clear is that the Silk Road was not just about the goods that passed through it. It was a bridge between worlds. Each step you take along the road appears you a small part of a much larger narrative. As you continue through the rocky terrain, you can't help but wonder what the next few days will bring. The mountain pass stretches on, and with each step, you feel the road tightening around you, its grip more unyielding. You think back to the oasis town, the brief moment of respite, and realize how quickly it slipped away. The road moves on, always moving, always testing, always demanding more of you. The question is no longer whether you'll make it to the end. It's how much of yourself you're willing to lose along the way. The caravan moves on through the treacherous mountain pass, its slow and steady march a testament to the determination of the travelers. As you walk, your senses are heightened, each step weighed down by the knowledge that the landscape itself could turn against you at any moment. The jagged cliffs that loom overhead cast dark shadows, and the wind howls through the narrow crevices, making the air feel colder than it should. You can hear the distant calls of the guards, their voices echoing off the rocks as they keep watch, alert for any sign of movement. You know the bandits are out there, somewhere, just waiting for the right moment to strike. The path ahead is steep and winding, and every step feels as though you're inching closer to a precipice. The camels, though sure-footed, seem to move more carefully, their hooves clattering against the rocks with a rhythm that matches the nervous tension in the air. You catch glimpses of the merchants around you, their faces drawn and tense, their eyes constantly flicking from one guard to the next, as if searching for reassurance that the danger is still at bay. But even as they focus on the road ahead, there's no denying that something hangs in the air, a sense that at any moment, everything could change. You've heard stories about these mountain passes, about the caravans that have been lost here, swallowed up by the unforgiving landscape or ambushed by those who know the terrain better than any outsider could. The mountain passes are the deadliest part of the journey, and you can feel that danger pressing in around you, its weight settling on your chest like a stone. You've seen the hardened faces of the guards, their eyes scanning the rocky outcroppings, their hands resting on their weapons, ready for anything. They're not just protecting goods, they're protecting lives. The higher you climb, the more the air seems to thin, and the cold becomes sharper, cutting through your clothes and biting at your skin. The sand that was once beneath your feet is now replaced by loose gravel, making each step more difficult than the last. Every breath feels a little harder to take, and your muscles, strained from the long hours of walking, begin to protest. The caravan keeps moving, but the effort seems to be growing heavier with each step. There's a certain rhythm to it, one foot in front of the other, 1 hour at a time, just trying to keep going. As you reach the crest of the pass, the landscape opens up before you. The view is breathtaking, a vast expanse of desert and rocky terrain stretching out in every direction, as far as the eye can see. The sun, now beginning its descent, casts a golden light over the scene, bathing everything in a soft, warm glow. For a moment, it feels as though the world has paused, as though you're standing on the edge of everything. The desert stretches out beneath you, its vastness both intimidating and awe-inspiring. It's hard to comprehend just how big this place is, how much land the caravan has yet to cover, how much danger still lies ahead. You take a deep breath, trying to savor the moment of calm before the journey resumes. The desert is beautiful in its own way, but it's a beauty that's tinged with danger. Every step you take on this road is one that brings you deeper into the unknown. It's hard to say whether the journey will end in riches or ruin. The Silk Road, despite all its promise of wealth and adventure, is also a place where uncertainty reigns. As the caravan begins to descend from the pass, the weight of the journey seems to return. The guards are still on edge, scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. The merchants fall back into their familiar rhythms, checking their goods, whispering to each other, and sharing stories of their travels. But there's a quiet understanding among everyone. The road ahead is still full of dangers, and the next step could be the one that changes everything. Historians still debate the true impact of the Silk Road on the societies it connected. Some argue that it was a road of exchange and opportunity, where cultures, ideas, and goods were shared in ways that shaped the world in profound ways. Others suggest that it was a road of exploitation, where the powerful profited from the labor of those who risked everything to travel it. Either way, The Silk Road was more than just a trade route. It was a test, a trial of endurance and will, where only the most resilient survived. And for you, this journey is no different. You've made it through the mountain pass, but the Silk Road is far from over. The land ahead is just as dangerous, just as full of uncertainty, and the next challenge is waiting. As you descend, you know that you've only seen a fraction of what lies ahead, and the road continues to unfold before you. A vast, uncharted territory filled with promise and peril in equal measure. The descent from the mountain pass is as treacherous as the climb. The loose gravel beneath your feet makes each step feel uncertain, and the weight of the journey pulls on your every movement. The air, though still thin, has a slight chill to it, but it does little to relieve the heat that still radiates from the desert floor. The caravan moves slowly, with the guards maintaining a tight formation and the camels' hooves sinking slightly into the shifting sand. You can feel the tension in the air, the sense that, despite the view, this is no time to relax. The road ahead may be more open, but the dangers are just as present, just as real. As the caravan makes its way down into the valley below, the landscape shifts again. The dry, barren mountain slopes give way to a dusty, wind-blown plain. Sparse vegetation clings to the edges of the rocky outcrops, and the land stretches out before you like a giant, empty canvas. But it's not an uninviting emptiness. It's a place that feels full of possibilities, of opportunities for those brave enough to claim it. The horizon is wide and open, a vast expanse that promises nothing but potential. Yet, in the silence that settles over the caravan, you realize that you are at the mercy of the desert. There is no shelter here, no oasis in sight, and no guarantee of safety. Despite the beauty of the landscape, you're reminded of the risks that lie in every direction. The dangers of the Silk Road are not just physical, they are psychological. You've witnessed firsthand how the constant threat of bandits, storms, and the unforgiving terrain can wear down even the most hardened travelers. The fear of what lies ahead is always there, creeping into your thoughts. No matter how hard you try to push it away, but the caravan keeps moving, the slow but steady pace of its journey never faltering. The merchants, despite their anxiety, continue to trade goods and share stories, always looking for the next opportunity to increase their wealth. The guards, too, remain alert, their weapons close, their eyes scanning the vast emptiness for any signs of trouble. The real danger now is the unknown. It's not the bandits, who have been dealt with in the mountain pass, or the harsh desert sun that burns you during the day and freezes you during the night. The real danger is the unpredictable nature of the journey itself. You could walk for days and never see another soul, never know whether the next stretch of land will be the one where the caravan falters or where a sudden sandstorm will swallow you whole. The road, despite all its commerce, despite all its wealth, remains wild and untamed, and you are just another traveler, another small part of its vast, unforgiving expanse. Historians still argue about the true significance of the Silk Road in the grand narrative of human history. Some claim that the Silk Road was the beginning of a globalized world, a network of trade and cultural exchange that laid the foundations for the modern era. Others suggest that the road's greatest impact was the way it connected diverse cultures and ideas, making possible the exchange of everything from religions to scientific knowledge. But what's clear, at least in this moment, is that the Silk Road is not just a road of wealth. It is a road of survival, of endurance, and of constant adaptation. As the sun dips lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the desert, you feel the weight of it all. The night will bring some relief, but it will also bring the cold, the desert's other face. You've seen how the temperature drops quickly once the sun sets, and you know that the coming night will be no different. You gather your belongings, pulling your cloak tighter around your shoulders, and prepare for the cold. The fires are already being lit as the caravan prepares to camp for the night, the smell of burning wood mingling with the scent of cooked food. The mood is quieter now. The exhaustion from the day's travel has settled into your bones, and the danger of the road feels a little further away in the warmth of the firelight. But even in this moment of respite, you know the journey isn't over. The road ahead is still long, still full of uncertainty. The Silk Road offers no guarantees, no promises of success or safety. And yet, as the fire crackles, you realize that this is the nature of the road. There is no final destination, no certainty of what awaits. The journey is the destination, and it is one that will shape you in ways you can't yet understand. You find a place near the fire and settle in for the night, trying to find some comfort in the warmth of the flames. Tomorrow, the caravan will move again, the journey continuing with the same rhythm it's had for days. The road will continue to test you, to push you to your limits, and you will continue to move, step by step, towards whatever awaits. There's no turning back now.